everyone. Welcome to Black and White TV. I'm Jamila Millette.
And I'm Sean Cooper.
So thank you so much for joining us. We are here to talk about various topics that tend to bring us together or divide us. But we want to talk about the parts that are like, like that. We want to talk about those parts, and we want to talk about the parts that challenge us. We want to talk about the parts that give depth to stories that we may not typically lean into. And we want to talk about stuff that is actually funny and fun.
Absolutely. And appreciate and thank those of you that reach out and have conversations with us about some of these difficult topics.
Or conversations with others.
It's huge, and we're learning so much. We definitely, as we've always said before, we're not the experts. We come at the topics that we're talking about as amateurs, as people that are learning. Mm-hmm. You have expertise in certain areas.
Yeah.
I hopefully try to have some expertise in some areas.
But
But at the end of the day, so many of these topics aren't about whether or not you're an expert
right.
or you're an academic or you have a degree.
Right.
It's, are you willing to roll up your sleeves and have some hard conversations?
Yeah. Can you put pride and ego aside and get vulnerable?
Can you?
Yeah, well, sometimes.
All right.
Like on the weekends.
So what are we talking about today? Today's it's a little lighter. It might get heavy. Sometimes we say lighter.
Did you ask a question then answer?
I don't know what I just did. What are we doing?
What are we talking about today, Sean?
Okay, here's the question.
No, I want to ask you the question.
Okay, go for it.
Are you ready though?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, we're going to talk about TV shows today, guys, okay? So,
But not so much current. Maybe.
We'll see what happens.
Bit.
You
Okay.
probably do want to get a little current. Okay, I'm gonna stay back there. But as Sean was growing up, okay, it was Friday night or Saturday night. What is Sean and his family, siblings, what are you guys watching?
Okay.
Name
I
some
love
classics.
this question.
Yeah.
And okay, we didn't talk about this before, but it was actually Thursday nights.
Oh.
A lot of the popular shows
Back
when
in
I was
your
growing
day.
up were on Thursday nights.
It's different from my childhood.
I know. So some of the shows that we would watch would be Different Strokes.
Okay. I
Do
know
you
about
remember Different
I do
Strokes?
know Different Strokes.
Gosh, we'll have to talk about that because now when I look back on it, that show it hits me a little differently than when I was growing up.
I don't remember much. Though.
You don't remember Arnold and Willis? What you talking about,
Was
Willis?
I didn't really. I know about it.
Did you watch Different Strokes?
If I did, it was not much, and I was like little.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Jeffersons?
Yeah. Again,
George and Louise.
I
Jefferson?
watched it from a distance.
Best theme song ever.
Right. Yeah. Do you want to sing it?
Well, we're moving on up.
Moving on up
Such a
to
good
the
one.
east side.
I met George at the Capitol when we were taking a bunch of students
very
on a
weird.
tour. Yeah.
Sounds weird.
It was kind of awesome. He was such a big...
Was he walking the walk? The way
He was
walks?
he was a little bit. He had his little walk. But we were getting a tour by, I think, our state governor, and all the students bailed. They literally, like...
What was this, 1974?
Yeah. No, it was early 90s, mid-90s. Mid-90s.
Okay, all right.
And all of a sudden, George walks around the corner, and everybody vacated this governor and left him there all by himself
awesome.
mid-speech, and all went to get pictures.
Because who cares about the state governor?
Exactly. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
What? Yes. That's hard. That's a hard staple.
Can you do Carlton's dance?
I can.
Can we see it?
No. Great question.
Have you won any dance contests with Carlton's dance before?
Absolutely not.
No?
My dance competitions were Michael Jackson.
Okay. A Different World?
Wait, you watched?
Of course.
Stop the recording.
Also a great theme song.
Oh my god.
Can you sing that one?
I know my parents love me. That's enough.
The Cosby Show, which is a bummer that with him
I know.
everything got so
But
sideways
yes, that
because
show is brilliant.
and spun off.
So many artists,
Yeah.
like featured in that
Totally.
show, like bananas.
All right, the last one I have, Family Matters.
Why are the predominantly black shows at the bottom of your list here.
They're all black shows.
What? Oh, you named me a bunch of black shows?
Yeah, that's all I named.
Oh, did he? I didn't even notice.
I did.
I'm like, oh, you know what it is? It's the ones that are now in my era. That's what just happened.
Well, but to maybe what's a little bit confusing is with at least a couple of them, one could label them and say, well, they were black shows, but some would say Different Strokes, not a great show. In fact, I was reading an article where they were talking about it's kind of racist, frankly.
And by kind of.
So
probably just racist.
I think with a couple of these, it's questionable. Right?
But this is what you grew up on. But what were the other shows that you were watching, Sean?
I don't remember, to be
For
honest.
real?
Full House.
Full House.
Full House.
You grew up on that?
Full House.
Because I grew up on that.
Didn't everybody?
But Sean, I feel like you were like 88 at the time.
No, come on. James, what about you?
The A-Team.
The A-Team!
Okay, yes.
How could I miss that?
I was, again, from a distance, I would see that one. It wasn't close up.
A-Team was good.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren?
Wait.
Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell.
Yes! Yes, AC Slater, all day.
So
okay,
good.
That's important. Wait, so you... I'm gonna... So I used to watch Nick at Night, okay? So were you watching, like, Mork and Mindy and Mr. Ed? Mr. Ed? The horse that talked? Yeah? Was it Mr. Ed? Were you... None of that?
Was that a show? Mork and Mindy? Absolutely. I don't know what Mr. Ed is.
Mr. Ed was black and white. That was black and white. But it was on Nick at Night. Look at his face.
Like from the 60s? What are we talking about here? Mr. Ed? James, have you seen Mr. Ed? No. Is this when you popped in like VHS tapes?
I'm older than you.
What were you watching? Mr. Ed, is he a horse?
Yeah.
Oh my word.
Yes.
Okay, I vaguely remembered somewhere in the recesses of my brain there's a Mr. Ed horse. Mork and Mindy, awesome.
Nenu.
Of course.
Yeah.
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, who else though?
Who else?
I'm trying to think.
I Love Lucy was also on Nick at Night. I don't know what year was I Love Lucy. I don't even know.
I mean, that was a little before our time too, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it before yours too?
Yours, yeah.
Okay, so you weren't watching like old
No.
school. Okay, so for me, here's our Friday night lineup was gonna be like Step by Step, Family Matters. You remember? Yeah. Okay.
Did you guys have a routine? Was it like everybody go take a bath, come back in your PJs, get your snack?
The only routine I remember is food. Like, so sometimes this would be like, okay, you can get McDonald's. Like, that was special. Back in the day, McDonald's was special.
It still is special.
I don't think it's special. No, because people eat it all the time now, and that's what's...
Not my kids.
Okay. Well, good for you. Not for you either, James Lee.
But once in a while?
Okay.
Happy Meal.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the Happy... I was a chicken nugget girl.
Double
myself.
cheeseburger?
I had a way that I ate my chicken nuggets. My brother was a burger.
I could eat some
I was a nugget.
McDonald's fries right now, actually.
So anyway, yeah. So some of those... who else was in that lineup? There was Full House was in there.
Full House. What the Tool guy?
Tim the Tool Man Taylor. That wasn't in the lineup.
That was later.
Yeah, that was later. On Saturdays though, we were watching Nickelodeon, and so you're watching, Snick or whatever, and All That. I don't know if you know All That. Do you guys?
Mm-mm.
That was brilliantly diverse. Keenan and Kel were on that show. Amanda Bynes.
Keenan and Kel.
He was on there. Oh, yes, I did see your episode. James Lee was on Keenan and Kel.
I know.
Our producer. So, yeah. So, Keenan and Kel started on All That. Keenan went off to... he was on Saturday Night Live, and now he has his own show right now. So, whatever. So
okay, another spin-off, though.
Yeah.
Fat Albert. Did you ever watch Fat Albert?
I didn't. I know about it. Yeah, at all.
Ever? Jay, what is wrong with you?
Oh, wow. I just really disappointed you on that. No, I know about it. Like, yeah, I've never seen it.
It always had like such a, had a message, Kids don't do drugs at the end.
It was right here.
Didn't Bill Cosby do all the voices or a lot of the voices?
I can't tell you that.
I don't know. I may.
Well, what was the spinoff? What were you going to say?
Well, when I think of Cosby Show, But I don't know. Like Fat Albert might have come before Cosby Show.
I think it probably did because
Who knows?
I had no affiliation with it. But also during SNCC was Rugrats. I think Doug was on there. Maybe later was Hey Arnold. They also had Are You Afraid of the Dark? That was like, whoa.
Are these all Nick shows?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all Nickelodeon. You didn't?
No. Didn't do Nickelodeon.
No, you probably got older.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in it.
Brady Bunch?
The Brady Bunch. I was the Wonder Years. I was about that life. The Wonder Years. Huh?
Bewitched.
Bewitched. I did not.
No.
I didn't. I didn't get into the Bewitched. Who else was in there? Yeah. So
that's a pretty good list.
Yeah. Those were like childhood and children well, Ren and Stimpy was also there. Not appropriate, but we watched it because it was in the lineup. Disgusting. Let's just be clear. I also watched Beavis and Butthead and Daria. You guys know about that? What? Oh gosh. Sometimes when people are like, they're Christians, so they're not allowed to watch these shows.
Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead. TP for your. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
So we just go down this list, right? And obviously, different era where
right. You were watching in living color and probably dancing.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a time period where you had to sit in front of a TV every week to watch it.
No DVR.
New episode every week.
You're watching commercials.
Totally. So when I think about that time period, obviously things are a little different than Netflix and sort of what we binge watch and how we do show watching now. But I guess my question is, when I think of the list of shows like we just went down, what about, like, so now fast forward to your high school years, college years. So now we're talking about sort of Friends,
right?
Seinfeld.
So I did not watch Seinfeld. I didn't watch Friends until later, like after I think everyone else watched it. I then watched it, but I was watching Living Single, Moesha, other black-dominated people shows. Like this was like the CW, right? So Girlfriends. That kind of stuff was like my high school time. Yeah. What were you watching?
I don't know. When I think about high school days, it gets blurry to me.
You were just reading at that point.
I don't know what I was doing. Going to the movie theater.
I also was big into Power Rangers, the original. Big. It was big time. Did you ever watch? You didn't.
The Power
Rangers. Were you too
Rangers?
old for that?
The Power Rangers.
Yes, the Power Rangers. The original.
They wore like those like fluorescent suits. It was so bad. Are we now going down the list of bad television?
It was brilliant at the time. Also, in high school, I started watching a soap opera, which was big for young people because it was geared towards young people.
90210?
No, but I did watch that too. No, this was called Passions.
Oh, I remember Passions.
Yeah, and one of the main characters from Passions is now on This Is Us. He's the brother of the twinsies, whatever. Because I was like, that's Fox, and that was his name in Passion. Anyway, but yeah, so those were some of the things.
Yeah, some of the shows that are coming out now, they have like there's a granddad that was like in a show back in the 80s when he was like single, right? And now he's 40 years later.
So funny. We watched That's So Raven, which they have a spinoff for. Boy Meets World, which they then had a spinoff for. More recent, like, what was it? Girl Meets World?
Yeah.
Girl Meets World. They did that. Did you ever see Boy Meets World?
No.
No, James.
How about Doogie Howser? James, did you watch Doogie?
I was into that.
No.
I was
Doogie?
into, yes. I also watched Pete and Pete. That was a weird one.
Never heard of it.
That was a weird one. That was Nickelodeon. Also,
Sister.
Yes, Sister, yes. And it's actually, and One-on-One, which is on Netflix right now. So, like, I hear young people talking about it, and I'm like, that's my child. That's my childhood. What are you doing? So, yeah, it's, anyway, so, blah, blah, blah. Let's come back to some of the issues even within this, right? I didn't recognize the differences of like this is like a black show and this is a white show and stuff like that as a kid. I can see it now, especially when I talk to certain people who are like, girlfriends, what? Moesha, sisters, like, it doesn't mean anything to them. When I'm like, what? Like, how did you live your whole life without seeing these shows? But like, so like I say living single and this person might say friends and I'm like, I can speak both. So I'm curious to know, like, for you, were you able to identify that, like, when you were younger or even now? Like,
you know, it's hard because I feel like I could reinterpret my history and rewrite it in a way because I don't know. For instance, when I look at the list and I think of different strokes, I don't remember wondering, is this a black show or a white show? Now looking back on it, I could see where it would be uncomfortable for someone who's black or brown to have a show that's a rich white dude adopting two black boys and it not really being reality. It's just entertaining, and you know, they were great entertainers. It was funny, but I don't know that it said much about black culture or white culture. Or when I think of even Fresh Prince, which was obviously super entertaining. Will Smith was awesome. Carlton was awesome. In a way, it almost has a copy-paste feel to it, even though it wasn't like a white rich dude. It was Will Smith's character. He goes to his uncle. What was the guy's name? Do you remember?
Uncle Phil.
Uncle Phil. But even that, even though...
Rest in peace.
Did he die? I didn't know that. Even though he moved from West Philadelphia...
Born and raised.
And went to... Where did they move to?
Bel Air.
Bel Air.
I'm here for you.
Hello. So...
Quiz questions.
But it still is... I wonder... I always wondered what the interpretation of Fresh Prince of Bel Air was for like in the black culture. Was it just kind of over the...
Martin was also one of
Martin! I totally forgot about that one.
Good. Yeah, I think, you know, depending on where you're from, it's like he's just represents us. Like, representation does deeply matter. I was actually reading something that talked about how these shows are more dictated by audiences. So, like, our black audiences watching Seinfeld and watching Friends and watching ER and watching, you know, things like that. And so our black audience is watching this, our white audience is watching this. It was more common to see that black audience will watch both and white audience will just watch more white dominated shows, which again speaks to, I think, the land, right? Like the fact that there was black entertainment television or is black entertainment television, and out here people say like, well, why is there black entertainment television? And it's like, because the majority of these shows and the majority of your entertainment is going to be white dominant. Putting just a black best friend or some random black character or whatever the case is does not make it diverse, you know? So those kind of things in fact, what we see as normal, right? Or you'll see a lot of like the sassy black character or something like that, just this archetype of a character, rather than seeing like, you know, seeing that this is a whole black family who's rich. Like, that's abnormal. So I thought that was actually quite powerful and beautiful. And yeah, just seeing even their nuances and like the role that Carlton plays in that, right? Like, somebody probably would say like, oh, he speaks white and you know, like those kind of things. And yeah, so there's just a lot of beauty and also there's sadness within this scope of entertainment.
Yeah. Well, one thing that has happened that I would hope has improved and is getting better is, for sure, when I think back to the 80s, you're talking about an extremely limited market. Like, even the way you started off the question, what did you watch on Friday nights? That means that there was basically like 2 or 3 channels. and at 8 o'clock you turn. You know what I mean? Like the powers that
there were more than 2 or 3 channels, people. Okay,
but I'm just saying, like the shows that everybody watched were on ABC, NBC, or
Fox.
CB. Even Fox was kind of like later in the beginning. So there was 3 or 4 major stations, and there was a market that was very limited, 8 o'clock being prime time Thursday night or Friday night. And so when I think back to that time period, it was very much dominated by a certain type of show, influenced by higher ups that could control content and market to probably mostly white people. What I feel has improved is with the way entertainment has opened up with the internet, with YouTube and Netflix and so many other ways that you can now have access, and people that are making shows. Like you love Korean dramas. You could not have watched Korean dramas in the 80s or 90s, right?
I couldn't.
Now we have so much access, and there seems to be much more of an appreciation for diverse content. Do you feel that way?
I do think so. Yeah, I think there is an appreciation. I think I think it came from a lot of, like, people would make fun of it, like Not Another Teen Movie and stuff like that would make fun of the various stereotypical norms, right? People will constantly talk about, like, oh, the black person gonna get killed first, in a horror movie or something like that. And you just kind of keep saying stuff like that. Or, oh, you have your token black person in the movie, you can keep it going, right? Then you move into, oh, you have your token person who identifies as homosexual, like just keep checking a box kind of a thing. And I think people kept talking about how, like, that's not okay, and that's not the representation that we want, and that's not honoring the fullness of who we are. You keep making Hallmark movies, and it's predominantly the lead is a white person. Like, there's a huge thing about that. Like the Christmas movies and stuff, which I love these Christmas movies, but yes, it is predominantly white people. And so Hallmark has heard that, and they're like, okay, we're going to try to get more black leads, and, like those kind of things. So yes, people are listening, not always from a place of, like, I hear you and I want to honor you. It's more of like, oh, am I going to lose money if I don't honor this? Then fine, we'll do it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the things that entertainment definitely provides opportunity for is endless amounts of conversation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so even before we record these or after we record these, we're always sitting around with Lauren and James, and just it's very common to just talk about binge watching. We were talking about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which you have yet to watch, sadly. But for the rest of America, a big deal. Or just Cobra Kai. Have you watched any of that? You're not missing anything. Oh, it's terrible.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm sorry
James,
for anybody.
Do you agree? Oh no!
It's rough.
Oh,
have you watched all of it?
No.
Yeah.
Season 1.
Oh gosh.
My wife, who I love dearly, and
start there.
one of the great things about her is she has extreme patience to watch things all the way through to the end, no matter how bad it is. So she, on behalf, I can't remember how many seasons there are, but
So
all of a sudden, mid-season 2 or 3, I don't know, we finished watching an episode, and I said to her, I cannot give another hour to this show any longer. That was so bad. And she said, well, so you don't care if I just watch it to the end. And she just, like, barreled through and then told me in a 5-minute summary, like, everything that happened. And
that is so funny. So wait, there were 2 things that I missed from my childhood, which I'm like, how could I miss this? I was big into wrestling.
Are you serious?
Yes, like Shawn Michael, Razor Ramon kind of.
Wow.
Back, I know, right? Yeah, I was like in it, which is crazy. I was also into Spanish soap operas at the time too. I was very small. Like, this is before age 7 that I was like, these are my people. And then later, I came back to wrestling when The Rock was there.
Well, wrestling is a soap opera, so that's why people watch it.
But isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
That was part of Jamila's thing.
That's a whole episode in and of itself. What attracts us to wrestling?
Not just wrestling, because wrestling in school does not match wrestling.
No.
Like,
totally
not
different.
even. Yeah.
Wrestling in school can make you uncomfortable a little bit. But come to think of it,
But both their
both
outfits
make
are-
you uncomfortable a little bit. There's some sketchy stuff. It's a subculture.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
a special time. Yeah, and then I was big into cartoons as well. Tom and Jerry's brilliant. I know they have some stuff that they
Right.
like. I think it was on Netflix now. They have like a disclaimer about like racial content and things that they're like, this is not okay, and it wasn't okay then. It's not okay now.
Right.
But we want you to know that it's in this story, kind of a thing. But what I found brilliant about Tom and Jerry is the music, like using music to tell a story. I was like, what? Brilliant.
All right, we're going to wrap up here in a second, but I just want to, we didn't talk about this, so you're going to, I don't know how much you've thought about it. You might have to just give an answer off the top of your head.
Whoa.
But because you mentioned Tom and Jerry, and it made me think of, even in recent weeks, everything that was happening with, what was the kids' book that there was all the controversy and cancel around?
Dr. Seuss.
Dr.
They
Seuss.
canceled Dr. Seuss?
Because there was at least a book, if not multiple. I can't remember, and I don't want to give any misinformation, but there was enough happening that people started canceling it, and maybe for good reasons. I don't want to cast any
Yeah.
judgment right or wrong, but what it made me think of is when you said Tom and Jerry, and you said that there's a disclaimer. I didn't know that they're saying things. I think maybe Disney has
The
either-
rights to it?
Oh,
Is it
no,
okay?
if Disney's done that to some of their
Oh,
movies.
yeah, they
even.
did. Lady and the Tramp, I think I saw there was something.
So I guess my question, this is just a personal
Yeah.
opinion, would you prefer for those types of shows or books or entertainment to be eliminated, canceled out, so to speak, or would you prefer for them to remain with those disclaimers? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I do want them to remain with those disclaimers. I like for us to see where we've come, because there's shows that I watched that I loved, and I'm like, oh no, like that would not be okay right now. You know what I mean? And it's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. It's just something to be aware of. I don't think everything, because it's like, that's life, right? Like there's stuff that is great and awesome and beautiful, and there's parts even in our own story that we would be like, that's not cool, but it's something you can even talk about, something just to be aware of. It's being an informed consumer.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have not had the time yet to put as much thought into this as I'd like to, but to try and just erase things and pretend like it never happened, or as if we can just make it go away with flipping a switch, it doesn't really help us moving forward. Acknowledge mistakes we've made, acknowledge where we turned a blind eye when we shouldn't have. Those are really good opportunities for us to say, it was wrong then, it's wrong now, let's learn from it,
Right.
rather than a lot of the overreaction. Again, we don't know, neither of us are totally up to
Right.
speed on some of these
And
topics.
I wouldn't want to blanket that statement with like, that's not, because it's not in all ways. It's not always okay to keep content that is deeply hurtful, that is now being talked about as deeply hurtful, but was deeply hurtful even then, but people didn't have the power of numbers of voice. You know what I mean? So like there could have been some content that was out there that was like, this is hurting a lot of people, but these people are minorities and they are subhuman, and so we don't care. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I do think there is a time and space where it's to say, not okay then, definitely not okay now, and not okay, period. And we're not going to continue to promote this because someone's getting paid. You know what I mean? So again, informed consumer, absolutely. But there are things I think that could potentially be like, shut it down.
Good. Love it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, thank you everyone here for joining us. And Sean gave me the eyes of like, we're done talking.
It was the look.
Yes. But we appreciate you so much for listening, and I hope that you will continue to listen and learn from not just us, but from one another, and even from yourself. If you can check in with yourself of like leaning into like, what are TV shows that I used to watch that with my new mind or my old mind, like what are things that come up there, and have discussions with people. And from listening and from learning, can we love well? Can we love better? So those are the things that we want you to lean into and challenge yourself with. Thank you again for joining us on Black and White TV.
Until next time.